I'm sure that this is not the last arrest warrant that ICC has brought against Mr. Putin. I'm sure the others will follow.
In 123 countries, Putin and Lvova-Belova are eligible for arrest if they should cross into the territory of such countries.
In fact, Putin becomes toxic, not only for Western leaders who will not shake hands with him, but also he's becoming toxic in the eyes of his own population.
After the arrest warrants are issued, Putin's political death should be expected.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Force. And I'm your host, Miroslava. Putin's world just got a lot smaller with the ICC's arrest warrant issued against him. In its first warrant involving Ukraine, the ICC called for Putin's arrest on suspicion of unlawful deportation of children and unlawful transfer of people from the territory of Ukraine to the Russian Federation. In today's episode, Ukrainian members of parliament and legal experts will comment on this historical decision of the International Criminal Court and what it means for Ukrainians that are seeking justice and fairness. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our videos in the future. The lesson for Putin is that you can run, but you can hide. And what worries others in his inner circle are the implications for them. Could they face similar charges? Will they be able to safely visit their kids studying in Europe's top schools and universities free from fear of arrest, gain access to their offshore assets, safely sunbathe in the Emirates, book a table in a fancy restaurant in Paris? Nothing is off limits now. Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, People Deputy of Ukraine and head of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Ukraine's integration into the European Union, is sure that more arrest warrants are following, and it's a clear signal for those supporting Putin's actions.
The International Criminal Court arrest warrant for Mr. Putin for his war crimes on the sovereign territory of Ukraine is the first step to ensure that this brutal war of unprovoked aggression against sovereign and independent state Ukraine will be finished with justice. Tens of thousands of the Ukrainian families who have lost their loved ones in this war, who have lost their possessions, their health, their homes under this brutal attack, are now provided with hope that the man who is behind the decisions that brought this pain and despair on them will be tried in accordance with the international law. I'm sure that this decision of the International Criminal Court is also giving a very clear signal to all Putin's cronies that by carrying out his orders or by supporting his actions, they are getting themselves also closer to the situation when they will be accused also of the war crimes, of the crimes against humanity, crimes of genocide that are taking place on the territory of Ukraine. This move is undermining all the efforts of Mr. Putin to present himself as a world leader. It undermines them both on the domestic level in the Russian Federation and on the international level as well. I'm sure this also means that Mr. Putin will follow the footprints of those other presidents who have, from other countries, who have also been under investigation and under the arrest warrants of the ICC. So even though Mr. Putin has not traveled much over last years, but this particular decision of the ICC even further limits his ability to visit other countries, even those that at this particular moment maybe have not made up their final decision, whether they are on the side of good or evil in this war, because Mr. Putin cannot step on the soil of those countries who are parties to the Rome Statute their direct responsibility would be immediately to arrest him. So instead of red carpet and anthem music, he is threatened with an inmate cell that could bring him to The Hague. I'm sure that this is not the last arrest warrant that ICC has brought against Mr. Putin. I'm sure the others will follow as well. Moreover, we will continue our efforts to set up an international tribunal to ensure that Mr. Putin and his cronies are brought to justice and under punishment for the crime of aggression that is not falling under the responsibility of ICC. And many more nations, not only Ukrainians, Moldovans, Georgians, Syrians, others, will probably also be ready to bring up charges against Mr. Putin and his cronies for all those crimes that they have brought brutally on their lands and on their countries. And that means, if we all succeed, that means that the international law is going to restore its ability to provide for security in the future.
After the announcement by the ICC, Putin's state TV puppets completely lost their minds. Head of Russia Today Margarita Simonyan implied that any country that arrests Putin would face nuclear destruction, adding that Russia merely took the children no one else wanted. Vladimir Solovyov called for arrest warrants to be immediately issued for all ICC judges, describing them as degenerates who should be hunted down and arrested by Russia's intelligence services abroad. And former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has suggested striking the ICC in Hague with one of Russia's hypersonic missiles and advised the court's judges to look carefully into the sky. Lesia Vasylenko, lawyer and People's Deputy of Ukraine, will talk more about this historic ICC's decision and how it still leaves some room for Putin to maneuver.
On the 17th March, the International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin, the acting president of the Russian Federation, and Maria Lvova-Belova, who is the special representative of Russia for the rights of children. The arrest warrant was issued in relation to the situation in Ukraine, and to say it more specifically, in relation to the many cases of illegally deported children from Ukraine to Russia. At the moment, there are 16,000 confirmed cases of children who have been illegally taken from their homes in Ukraine and placed into the care facilities of 49 camps for children all across the territory of Russia. Of course, such actions are deemed absolutely illegal, absolutely incompatible with international law, and the perpetrators of such crimes must bear full responsibility. But what does the issuance of the arrest warrant actually mean? Essentially, 123 countries have ratified the Rome Statute, and that means that in 123 countries, Putin and Lvova-Belova are eligible for arrest if they should cross into the territory of such countries. However, in practice, this still leaves quite a lot of room for maneuver. We have countries like China, India, Turkey, who have not ratified the Rome Statute, and means that Putin can continue building relationships with these countries in accordance to the principles business as usual. However, this is a first major step. This is a historic decision. This is also a sign that the international community has the political will as well as the legislative basis to bring the perpetrators of grave international crimes to responsibility. And logically, the next step would be the establishment of a special tribunal for the crime of aggression, of the aggression of Russian Federation against Ukraine.
In the continuation of massive hysteria in Russia after issue of Putin's arrest warrant, Russia's top investigative body has opened a criminal case against the ICC prosecutor and judges. claiming that prosecutors' actions showed signs of being crimes under Russian law, including knowingly accusing an innocent person of a crime. It all sounds like a bad joke from a parallel reality, but this is just news from Russia. Oleksandr Merezhko, People's Deputy of Ukraine, will talk more about Russia's and Western reaction to the ICC's warrant.
Dear friends, the decision by the International Criminal Court to issue arrest warrant for the Russian President Vladimir Putin is a truly historic decision, which opens the way for bringing to justice war criminal Putin. I'll try to explain why it is important. First of all, we should bear in mind that Putin himself and his accomplice, the Russian Commissioner on, so to speak, children's rights, have openly admitted and have openly recognized that they are responsible for deportation and abduction of Ukrainian children from the occupied territories of Ukraine. It means that they have recognized openly and officially that they have committed and continue to commit one of the worst war crimes, which is strictly prohibited by international humanitarian law and prohibited by the Geneva Conventions of 1949. Thereby, they have recognized their responsibility. And this decision by the ICC, by the International Criminal Court, to issue arrest warrant means that more than 100 states which are parties to the Rome Statute, which are members of the International Criminal Court, are obliged to arrest, to detain Putin if he appears in their territories. It's truly a historic decision which has not only serious legal but also political ramifications, because it leads to further isolation of Russia as an aggressor state, which shows that Russia is a terrorist state, terrorist regime, and that Putin himself will be soon brought to justice, to international justice. That's why it's so important. And bringing to international accountability, to criminal accountability, Putin and all his accomplices is just a matter of time. We already see some reaction from Russia itself, from Russian leadership, and from the Western leaders. As for reaction by Russia to this warrant, it was predictable, because Russia and Russian leader, they are in panic. They understand that they're losing ground, that they're losing legitimacy, also in the eyes of Russian population, which deprives Putin of his leadership and might lead to his quick fall. Even though Russia is not a party to the Rome Statute, it doesn't mean anything, because the reality is such that majority of states in the world are parties to the Rome Statute, and they are obliged to perform their obligations under the Rome Statute and to implement this arrest warrant against Putin. It also means that Putin will not be able to go to those countries which are parties to the Rome Statute because of fear of being arrested. It makes him a pariah in the eyes of the world leaders, and it leads to his complete isolation. In fact, Putin becomes toxic, not only for Western leaders who will not shake hands with him, but also he's becoming toxic in the eyes of his own population. And that's why we might expect some serious reaction even in Russia itself against Putin. As for the Western leaders, we see strong statements in support of this arrest warrant and in support of the move by the ICC by such leaders as the US president, as some leaders of Europe, including foreign ministers, for example, Foreign Minister of Estonia. It means that the democratic states are united in understanding that Putin is a war criminal, and as such, he should be brought to justice as soon as possible.
Putin is only the third president to be issued with an ICC arrest warrant. ICC prosecutor Karim Khan pointed out that nobody thought that Slobodan Milosevic, the Serbian leader who went on trial for war crimes in Croatia, Bosnia, and Kosovo in the 1990s, would end up in The Hague to face justice. Those that feel that you can commit a crime in the daytime and sleep well at night should perhaps look at history. Legal expert at the Regional Center for Human Rights, Katarina Rashevska, will touch upon other legal consequences of this symbolic yet very important step.
According to the ICC, the crimes were committed no later than February 24, 2022. Putin and Lvova-Belova are potentially guilty of committing criminal acts directly, jointly with others, and or through others. In addition, the Russian dictator must be held accountable as a commander. But what exactly does it mean? Among the essential features of an arrest warrant are the following. It is valid until the ICC orders otherwise. Taking into account the customary nature of the principle of the non-applicability of statutes of limitation for those crimes in which Putin and Lvova-Belova are suspected, the warrant can be cancelled only in connection with the death of the suspects. In addition, the prosecutor can initiate amendments to the arrest warrant by changing or adding to the crimes specified in it. We are talking about a possible requalification into genocide and adding other crimes to the warrant. This is evidenced by the information leak in the New York Times, which together with the abduction of minors, featured indiscriminate attacks on civilian objects. The arrest warrant has several legal consequences. The person receives the specific legal status of a suspect with the corresponding set of rights and obligations, both for them and for the member states of the court and the international community as a whole. Consideration of the situation moves to the next stage of the investigation, formation of cases, and moves in the direction of court hearing. There is confirmation of the existence of a solid evidence base which gives reasonable grounds to believe that the person committed international crimes. Also, the court can order the transfer of money and other property of the suspects to the trust fund for further compensation to the victims. From this point of view, the trend of voluntary contributions to the fund by the satellite state of Ukraine, which became active a week before the warrants were issued, seems very logical. On the basis of a warrant, the court may request the arrest and surrender of a person under Part 9 of the Rome Statute. The latter provision means, in practice, that the 123 member states of the ICC, as well as Ukraine, which has recognized the jurisdiction of the court, other countries that cooperate with the court on a case-by-case basis, but are not members, for example, the United States, will detain Putin and or Lvova-Belova soon as the latter cross the borders of their territory. After such detention, the suspects will be transferred to the Hague Penitentiary Center in the Scheveningen for the further investigation and participation in the trial. Since October 2022, the international community has significantly intensified its efforts in order to condemn the criminal behavior of the Russian Federation related to the illegal deportation and transfer of Ukrainian children. Relevant resolutions were adopted at the European Union and the Council of Europe levels. After the arrest warrants are issued, Putin's political death should be expected. It means that the Russian dictator and his representative Maria Lvova-Belova will not be invited to official events, no negotiations will be held with them, and no agreements will be concluded, at least directly. Maintaining relations with suspects will be a significant reputational threat, which only certain states that are either already outcasts or can afford to have their own curs, for example China, will agree to. Moreover, the decision of the International Court of Justice should impact the Russian Federation's position in the United Nations Security Council. According to Article 27 of the United Nations Charter, the party involved in the conflict must abstain from voting on issues related to such dispute. Karim Khan's statement contains a direct reference to the aggression of the Russian Federation and the existence of an armed confrontation between Ukraine and Russia. Therefore, further efforts should be made toward removing the Russian Federation from voting and veto abuse, especially considering that the state will preside over the Council from April 2023.
You've been watching the special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini! And fingers crossed for Putin's arrest.